The bathroom floor and indeed the entire floor of the back half of the RV is starting to degrade slightly. At least one time the pole actually caught fire. Lots of other rigs have different kinds of problems.
A little while back we did a video on everything that broke in our brand new RV when we got it. We've had the RV for a year now, and sad to say, we have another round of things that broke. And today we're going to talk about what they are in chronological order.
Sure, chronological order.
And there's a lot to cover today, so let's dive in.
Everything from didn't actually break to what were they thinking when they made it.
There's your problem.
Yeah, so that was the interesting thing. After all the hassle we had in our first video, we thought we were in the clear, and then we had a few minor things happen right away. So we were leaving Dallas and we were going to that winery that we did the video
Oh
about.
yeah. We went to go turn on our water pump and start to try to use it, and didn't work.
Yeah, it wasn't pumping water.
Houston, we have a problem.
It was kind of scary.
So what we've learned about this particular rig is it gets air bubbles, especially in the flexible lines that are by the slide, and those will end up actually airlocking a little bit. I think it's maybe a little kink with an air bubble in it, and so water won't flow. So not really anything to fix, like beside making sure that those flexible hoses are in a good spot.
Well, you had a theory too, because it worked at our next destination. You had a theory that as we went over bumps in the road, it kind of burped the system.
Yeah.
Almost like if you really have to burp, if you have gas, if you walk around, sometimes it helps. It was kind of like that, I think.
Yeah, so it's you're literally just moving the air through the system. If you're an automotive guy, you know what an airlocked system is. It's very, very, very similar, where you just get a bubble in there and you just basically got burnt.
Yep.
And then next, more water issues. We got down to Margaritaville.
Yeah, it was near Houston.
Yep.
It was at Crystal Beach. It was
Crystal Beach.
just a couple days after we went to the Harvest Host. We were at Margaritaville for a month.
So we stayed down there for a month, and I got to set up, and water was leaking around my regulator setup, and I couldn't figure out what was going on, so I actually called them over. So just a note to parks, if you're using those really cheap backflow preventers that are basically just a plastic disc, replace those regularly, especially if you have hard water. They didn't end up replacing this one because they had actually screwed in the set screw on them, and it was almost impossible for them to get it off. So basically that thing dripped basically the entire time we were there. I didn't feel too bad because we let them know that's what was going on. But at our next stop, everything was watertight and perfectly fine, so it was definitely not us.
It was definitely on their end, and we found that a little weird. I actually listed it as a con in the Margaritaville review. I mean, just a minor thing. It was a little weird though. But yeah, like you said, you told them and they ignored it, so not our problem.
Yeah, they blamed us, but I actually ended up replacing every single one of our rubber seals on our hoses. It was getting to be about that time anyway. The rig itself was over a year old at that point, under pretty decent use, so I just replaced all of the seals anyway. The little O-ring gaskets that you put on the hoses. So I did every single one and it still leaked. So
it's a good maintenance tip there to kind of check on that stuff every now and
oh
then.
yeah, definitely. Like I actually carry those because they're small, and you're just gonna have a bad day if one of those decides to let go. So it's good to have those. They also sell ones that have the little filters on them too.
Oh, actually, if you have the link for that, I'll put that in the description for them.
Yeah, just make sure you get drinkable water ones. Most of them are, but some of them are just like for non-drinking hoses.
So at this point, the last two things that happened were false alarms. One was something that just kind of resolved. The other thing was the park's fault. So we were feeling pretty good about the rig, and we went 3 weeks or so without any other issues with the rig.
But then we had two things happen. One, which was another water-related thing. I think you'll find that in common with a lot of RV problems is water tends to be the enemy, either coming in or going out.
So the next two things happened at the same place we were staying. This was actually the park we stayed at near New Orleans in Livingston.
So the first thing that happened was Justin forgot to chalk the wheels all the way. Don't! I believe what happened, if I remember this correctly, I think I was checking the oil or something underneath the hood, and I hit the parking brake release instead.
Yikes!
Very, very common. They're right next to each other. And it rolled back maybe an inch, maybe two. But that was enough to bend our stabilizers.
Yep.
So we don't have levelers, for better or for worse. We just have stabilizers in the back so that it doesn't feel like a roller coaster when you're trying to sleep. But they did end up bending those, so don't do what I did.
Don't try this at home, boys and girls.
Because what I did was pull the rig forward 2 inches with them down. Because I figured if it was the rig that bent them back, I might as well pull it forward and bend them right back, which is it's exactly what it did, with no ill effects.
My name's MacGyver.
It's been like 4 months and they're doing great. So...
They're doing just fine.
I mean, fingers crossed, right?
I mean, I do keep them under, like I oil them regularly. I keep their screws and everything clean, so I do try to take care of them.
Yeah.
But don't do what I did and let them bend and then bend them back. That's probably not the best thing to do.
Brutal honesty, though. You know, top marks for brutal honesty, being
Yep.
brave enough.
I definitely come from a hey y'all watch this type of background.
Here we go. Hey, hold my beer.
I built up some engineering level
Yeah.
stuff on top of that. But you can't really get rid of that.
Yeah. So the other thing also happened at Livingston, and that video that I did about Livingston was about a deep freeze. It was very cold when we were there. They had a cold snap near
Yep.
New Orleans, and it was snowing. There were icicles off the rig. You had the heated hose out. What
Yes.
happened to the heated hose, Justin?
So I have been continually trying to kind of build up a great heated hose setup for us because we do get into places that have winter weather. We're not really going for like the whole let's go camping in like negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit weather.
Not yet, though.
Not yet, but I want to make it so that we're comfortable in that. So I've been playing with stuff that basically looks like pizza bags and things like that so we can have our filters and all that kind of stuff going because we don't have like a heated underbelly like a bus or a fifth wheel.
We should do a video for them once you get your setup all set. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do a video on that.
So subscribe if you don't want to miss that.
But I had been mucking about with the hoses and everything, using heat tape and things to keep things heated, and I don't know if it was my fault or if there was a defect in the hose that we got or something like that, but there was a runaway heat event in the heat tape on one of our heated hoses. It actually ended up melting the wire together. Luckily there wasn't a fire. The protection on it did keep, but it definitely did not shut off when it was supposed to.
So we ended up running out and getting a replacement.
Yep.
Although I think what happened, didn't you buy one that was a little bit long for our needs originally? Like you bought
Yep.
too much hose. You had been thinking
So
you'd
yeah-
like a smaller hose anyway.
Yeah, so I bought a 50-foot hose, which didn't store well where I
Yeah.
wanted it to store, all that kind of stuff. So it was for the best to get a new hose. But yeah, make sure to keep an eye on your hoses. Like maybe I pinched one of the wires and that caused a short. Like make sure you're very careful about how you're managing those because you do have electricity next to water.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's a good point. Wow. So we had the 2 incidents and we took care of it, and just like clockwork, 3 weeks later we had another incident. We went from Louisiana to Alabama, and as we were leaving Alabama, we went into Florida in Port St. Joe. We had that thunderstorm that we drove through.
So yeah, we had a nice thunderstorm we drove through, and I was setting up very quickly because I was being drenched. And back to the nice heated hose. From what I can figure, Justin broke the rig and then fixed it. I figure I had pulled out that hose too quickly and it had snagged. So at least on this particular rig, a lot of the controllers are just in the compartments. They're in the storage compartments. And sometimes they did a good job of managing the cables. On the slide controller, they did not this time.
Oh, so this was the slide controller.
This was the slide controller.
Oh dear.
And so what ended up happening was that hose grabbed one of the cables and bent the connector.
You were hurrying in Foley because it was like tornado warning, raining cats and dogs. We wanted to get out of there. And you bent the wire, and then
Yes.
we got the slide in. We went to Port St. Joe,
Yeah,
and you went
then-
to set up.
And I went to set up, and the slide would not come out. From what I can figure is I had bent it, putting things back in Foley, and then in Port St. Joe, I went to bring it out, and either the rough road or the hose or whatever disconnected it just enough that the slide didn't want to go anywhere.
That was like a very oh my Godzilla moment.
I was able to basically finagle it a little bit, just kind of wiggle it and get the slide out. What I ended up doing was actually double checking the circuit board, making sure I didn't break anything, kind of bending the pins back, and then I actually redid some of the wiring in there too, kind of resecured it, gotten away from where I'm storing things so that things can't snag on it quite so easy. So that, and we haven't had any problems with that since.
Yeah, you just did that really quickly one afternoon
Yep.
that we were in there, because we were only in St. Joe for like a week, Port St. Joe. And then the next thing wasn't 3 weeks later, but it was 6 weeks later. We had a really nice long period where nothing went wrong.
Can we not have peace?
And then something kind of big we started to notice.
Yeah. So our bathroom floor has always been a little squeaky sometimes. I had just put this down to the particular construction that they used on this, and I was correct, but I didn't realize exactly what was going on quite yet. And this we have not fixed yet, but the bathroom floor and indeed the entire floor of the back half of the RV is starting to degrade slightly. And this didn't come up when I was really looking at Thor's, and in before all the Thor haters, I get it. I know. But lots of other rigs have different kinds of problems. I'm looking at you, buses with in-floor heating.
Yeah, there's that whole thing. I've been watching some of the Liz Amazing. I'll tag it in the comments. She does a lot of those manufacturers call outs, and there have been other RV companies. I'll put them down there. I'm not going to call them out in the video, but like they're getting a lot more shame than Thor from her channel right now. So
I'm not hating on any particular manufacturer. I get why they're doing what they did back there, because what they're doing is a kind of a hybrid floor with basically structural foam in it. From my point of view, they're just not putting enough support in. And so what's happening is the foam is probably contracting a little bit slightly. I will probably do a video when I actually go and fix our floor, because I will take up that floor and put some support in and fix it. But for right now, I actually just have basically a piece of plywood on top.
yeah, so what you did in the meantime was, until you could diagnose it, because we were traveling really fast at the time, you put some painter's marks over it. We were just like stepping over the area that was soft. We didn't know. And then you made basically like a leaf, which I'll show them with video and everything. That is kind of like a, what would you call that?
It's just to bridge across the actual supports in the floor. So it's just a piece of plywood. I put some vinyl planking on top, or some vinyl covering, because it is in the bathroom. I want to make sure that it's at least water resistant. But it basically just bridges across the actual joists in the floor so that we can walk on that without really having to worry about it.
It basically keeps it stable until Justin has a chance to actually rip out the floor and see what's going on.
Because what I'll end up doing is actually cutting up the vinyl that the manufacturer put down. I'll check out to see what's actually happening with either the supports or the foam that they've used or anything like that. So this is a good tip that, like I said, I didn't run into when I was looking at Thor's, but the technology that they're using there, that is very common for the back floor to be slightly soft. It's not water damage or anything like that, but it's not really meant for a full-time usage, because it does tend to degrade with people walking on it, etc. It makes it very comfortable for like the bedroom areas, but unfortunately it does degrade. So yeah, look forward to a video in the mid-future, I would say.
Yeah, once we get it done, we're gonna do a good job for you, so we'll post it right when we have it. So
yep. After the whole floor thing, we're basically in the same park. It was the end of our Eclipse trip.
In Glen Rose, Dino Valley.
So over the last year or so, some of the glue on the contact paper that they use on the cabinets and the walls and basically all over the place. And if you're looking at an RV that's under $200,000, you're probably looking at something that has this like wood with contact paper on it. But I noticed it started to peel around the edges, so I literally just got contact cement and put it back. You know, pretty easy fix there. A really great tip is, if you want to make sure that stuff, if you start to see it peeling up at the edges, get some thin contact cement and just go for it.
It's kind of more weird sink plumbing issues, right? Yeah. The next thing was also kind of small. But...
Yes. So yeah, it's pretty small, and this is something I had noticed, and really the way I fix it is by banging on it. You know, it's a nice...
we have to tell them what it is first.
Well, no, I don't. I can just say I bang on it. A lot of sinks in RVs, because everything doesn't have a vent near it, it will have an air admittance valve. Most sinks and things will have this, and ours, for some reason, likes to stick. Not exactly sure why. I actually haven't gotten around to replacing it quite yet. But for right now, I just apply percussive maintenance to it.
So you hit it.
I hit it.
You hit that. You hit it and quit it.
But yeah, if I notice the kitchen sink starting to drain slow, I basically just reach under, bang on it, and let it go.
Are we boring you, Rat Face? We're boring Rat Face, everyone.
It's okay. He doesn't want to hear about the sink because he doesn't get to go under there very often.
Oh, he loves to go under the sink, though. That's like his favorite place. And then the final thing that's broken recently.
Was another big one.
This was probably the most dramatic thing, I would say. Well, the floor is pretty big. The floor and this other thing.
Yeah, we'll see how big the floor is when I get to it.
Yeah.
Because for all I know, it's just, it needs like a little bit of foam and a 2x4.
And the floor is starting to go. This other thing completely quit at a very bad time.
Yep. So we were near Big Bend in
Yep.
104 degree weather, and the blower motor on our rear AC froze up.
Yep.
Now, luckily we have two ACs, but this rig was designed so that in really hot weather, it needs both ACs running. So we were getting up to 95 degrees next day. It was pretty sweltering in here, especially after we lost power again.
Yep, and we were 5 hours from the nearest city of any size, which was El Paso. There was a small town about an hour and a half away that had an RV shop, but we had tried to call them and everything.
The part shop didn't get back to me. The mobile repair tech eventually got back to me about 12 hours later, which is fine. You know, he's probably busy. I don't blame him whatsoever.
But we were in a very difficult situation because we have Rat Face. He's older. He gets hot.
I was hot.
We were hot, but he's also, it's very dangerous for animals. They don't cool off as well. So first thing we did was you went up on the roof.
Yeah, well, I had to diagnose it. I knew the compressor was running, but I also knew that the fan was not turning. So went up on the roof, took everything off, realized that the motor was completely seized up. I could actually see oil had leaked around the seals. It was obviously not turning. I made sure everything else looked good. The capacitor, the starter cap, like I said, the compressor was running, but the fan just would not turn. So yeah, I grabbed the part number off of that, and it was really strange because it was a Dometic unit, very, very common. But the actual motor manufacturer that they call out in their specs was not the one that was in there. The replacement we got was.
So they subbed some other brand of
Yeah,
part
they had.
in there?
Yeah, they must have had a supply chain issue or something like that, like a lot of manufacturers have. When they subbed something in, and it seems to not have lasted as long as it probably should have. Now, again, granted, we're running it quite often.
We are, yeah.
It wasn't really that bad of a fix. We were able to find a RV supply store near Portland, of all places.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon.
I think it was actually on the Vancouver side, across
It
the
took
river.
2 planes and a truck.
Yes.
We were able to get an express ship to us in the middle of the freaking desert.
Yeah, we were actually the talk of the entire resort for a little bit.
Yes, I remember I went to the gas station to buy breakfast burritos or sandwiches or whatever, and they're like, "Oh, you were the people with the AC."
So apparently we were the talk of the town, which is absolutely hilarious.
It was a very small town, though, to be honest.
It was a pretty, I would say, decently quick fix.
We have a whole video we made on it, which I'll link to for
down below if you want to see what it looks like to replace that. It is a pain, and it was very hot up on the roof.
Yep.
But decently straightforward. Just make sure you route the wires the correct way, because that cost me about half an hour.
Plus, if they watch the video, they get to see the beginnings of our off-grid setup. We were starting with the solar panels and the power bank.
And the power bank and everything.
Which, by the way, didn't break, but was good when the park infrastructure took a bath on us, and the power went out in the desert.
Well, when you're on the end of a transmission line in the desert.
It wasn't the park's fault.
Yeah.
It was that town and the town next to it both had out of power. So
yeah, I think at least one time the pole actually caught fire.
Yeah, the pole caught fire. Yes, it was very deserty. They had the pole catching fire. The wind was crazy. Like it was nuts.
Just kind of happens.
But this guy, he's being modest. He was up there heroically fixing the AC.
But I think that is everything that's broken so far.
Yes. Yep, and we'll have that video on the floor for y'all when we slow down and fix it. But it's been pretty good, all things considered. I'm glad I have somebody handy with me. And that's something we say, that if you're doing this full time, these things are not necessarily meant to be lived in full time, so it's good to be handy and have a willingness to learn new skills.
And I know there is a thing to be said about having money to fix it, but being handy, being able to fix the things means you get to fix them on your time schedule instead of somebody else's.
And time is so valuable. Like we would have had to go and stay in that resort and stuff, the golf resort. It was like $300 a night, and we would have been in a smaller space and everything. It was just so much easier to overnight the part for $40 or whatever it was, and it was sweaty, awful work, but we were able to cool off a lot faster, and we didn't have to leave our home. So hopefully we won't have another update video like this for you guys.
We probably will. I still wouldn't trade this for anything.
No, it's been totally wonderful.
Yeah.
You're learning a lot too.
Learning a lot. Having owned several houses, and actually I was the house manager for like a fraternity and all that kind of stuff, things break constantly in houses and everything too. I would say this is not abnormal.
No, it's just another degree of difficulty when you're traveling and you don't know the area and things like that. I think it just kind of amps up the drama a little bit.
Yeah.
But, if it's a mess, it'll be a good show for y'all. So there's that. But yeah, I think that's it for now, right?
That is it for now.
It was good talking to y'all. Thanks for watching. Keep on moving, and we'll see you in the next video.